So the minimum wage is very, very popular. It's so popular that even red states are on board with the minimum. This is from 2016. 2 red states just voted to increase the minimum wage. In 2016, Arizona, Maine, Colorado, and Washington had ballot initiatives to raise the minimum wage. They all passed. Minimum wage is popular. People like it. Bernie Sanders, led by Bernie, Democrats introduced legislation to raise the minimum wage. It's popular. Why wouldn't they do it? Well, because they have to please their donors. That's why they haven't done it yet. Our $15 minimum wage bill would give a raise to over 40 million Americans, including more than half of African Americans and Latino workers. A job should lift you out of poverty, not keep you in it. It's time every worker in America is paid a living wage. I like that. My favorite thing is a job should lift you out of poverty, not keep you in it. It's time every worker in America is paid a living. I'm with you.
A job, too, not 3 jobs.
Not 3 jobs.
Not 3 jobs.
On Wednesday, a coalition of congressional Democrats introduced legislation that would raise the federal minimum wage from $7.25 to $15. That more than doubles it. That's how bad the minimum wage is right now.
Teddy Roosevelt, 2019, is a registered Republican who supports Bernie Sanders and watches Jimmy Dore because Jimmy Dore speaks more truth than just about anyone in the media. He's right. Our minimum wage is bad right now. Here's how bad it is. Minimum wage in 1968 was $1.60 an hour. If you adjust that for inflation to 2014 dollars, it'd be $9.58 per hour. Minimum wage needs to be higher. It's $7.25 an hour. What would that be adjusted for inflation if in 1968 minimum wage was $1.60 per hour? Well, let's see. We'll hit calculate. Oh, it'd be $11.62 an hour in May here of 2019. So we're shortchanging this generation over $4 an hour, which is $8,000 per year of wages.
That you have to double it just to get people out of poverty. Just a few short years ago, we were told that raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour was radical. I remember that. You're a fairy dust. What are you, crazy? Whoa, everybody's going to lose their job. But a grassroots movement of millions of workers throughout this country refused to take no for an answer. The current $7.25 an hour federal minimum wage is a starvation wage. So the idea that if fast food workers get a living wage, that somehow the fast food companies will fire them and hire robots is something stupid that a lot of people say because for some reason they're angry at people who make less money than them. We've showed you in Denmark. We did a video on this channel about how they make $20 an hour, the workers in Denmark, and it's mostly because of strong unions.
Yeah.
And they understand that, it's okay that if you work at a restaurant, you should still be able to have a life. Because you work at a restaurant doesn't mean you're a piece of and you don't get to have things. We need restaurants. Everyone likes them. Why don't we pay the people who work in them a living wage? CNN actually sent a reporter to Denmark to check it out. And this is what he found out.
McDonald's is used in the debate over minimum wage. In Denmark, there is no minimum wage. But because of union negotiations, people who work at McDonald's here make almost $20 an hour. And even though things are very costly in Denmark, this Big Mac costs less than in the United States.
In Australia, they make $16 an hour at McDonald's. This is from expatnation.com. And it says, advocates of the raise point to Australia, a magical land where McDonald's staff earn more than $16 an hour and burgers are still really cheap. Only 60 to 70 cents more expensive than in America. Hey, guess what? The government has turned its back on its workers, so the workers are getting to the streets. There was a big day of protest, a 4th annual Fight for 15. That's nice, right? Look at that. So across the nation, thousands fight for, that's from The Guardian, thousands Thousands of Fight for 15 protesters rise up in 340 cities across the U.S. I was always taught growing up that there was a pact in our society that if you were willing to work full time, 40 hours a week, that you wouldn't be poor, that you would be able to have a life. If you were willing to work 40 hours a week and contribute to society and work 40 hours a week, you were able to have a life. You were able to have a house and a car in your garage. That was the deal. That's no longer the deal. $7.25 an hour. You can't even afford a studio apartment.
There's a new report out from the Low Income Housing Coalition, and they crunched some federal data to see what it's like to live on minimum wage in different states. And the results are disturbing. So let me show you their chart here. Okay, those numbers that you see there, that's the number of hours you would need to work in each state in order to make enough money to live in a one-bedroom apartment. Now, what you'll notice is you can't afford it in any of the places. Here's the conclusion of the report. Quote, there is no state in the U.S. where a full-time minimum wage worker can afford the rent of a one-bedroom apartment.
Let alone a car and gas and insurance and health care and food and electricity. The Raise the Wage Act is what it's called, would also index future increases in the minimum wage to medium wage growth and abolish the sub-minimum tipped wage. So the Raise the Wage Act would index future increases in the minimum wage to medium wage growth. So apparently, the way I read this is that you wouldn't have to keep raising the minimum wage. It would automatically be tied, and you would have automatic increases. That's what I'm getting. Is that what it sounds like to you?
Yeah, which is something we should have had in the first place.
Yeah.
That's why we're in this mess.
Why isn't it tied to inflation?
Mm-hmm.
That's what it really should be tied to. In 2013, Democrats tried to raise the federal minimum wage to $10.10 an hour, but were stymied by a Republican-led Congress. A bill in 2015 to increase the minimum wage by $12 by 2020 never even got a vote.
With his second term stuck in a rut, President Obama spent the day on a mission to fire up his base.
I believe this is the defining challenge of our time.
At a speech sponsored by a liberal think tank, he laid out a decidedly progressive second-term agenda focused on fixing the nation's income inequality, calling for a raise in the minimum wage from $7.25 an hour to more than $10 and an extension of unemployment benefits.
In the years since I asked this Congress to raise the minimum wage, 5 states have passed laws to raise theirs. Many businesses have done it on their own. Nick Shute is here today with his boss, John Serrano. John's an owner of Punch Pizza in Minneapolis, and Nick helps make the dough. Only now he makes more of it.
What? So in 2013, the Democrats tried to raise, but you know what? That's interesting that they tried to do that in 2013. They didn't try to do that in 2010 when they had complete control of government, or 2009.
Mm-hmm.
The yeas are 220, the nays are 215. The bill is passed.
The United States government is deporting historic numbers of undocumented immigrants. This despite promises by President Obama and U.S. lawmakers to pass immigration reforms. Now, a group of Hispanic Americans are fed up with the delays and are finding new ways to bring about a change in policies. Our White House correspondent Jessica Stone reports.
With one simple phrase, National Council of La Raza President Janet Murgua signaled the height of Hispanic American anger at U.S. President Barack Obama, saying, quote, "For us, this president has been the deporter in chief." Around the country, immigrant advocates have rallied and marched to stop Obama's policies, which have led to nearly 2 million deportations of undocumented immigrants.
The deportations are getting more aggressive.
Mr. President, without a doubt, I guess you agree that your credibility has been somewhat tarnished with...
On a Telemundo televised town hall, U.S. President Barack Obama shot back.
What I've said in the past remains true, which is until Congress passes a new law, then I am constrained in terms of what I'm able to do.
With that one finger that the president is pointing at Republicans, there's 4 that are pointing at him. With that one finger that the president is pointing at Republicans, there's 4 that are pointing at him.
According to the research by the Economic Policy Institute, increasing the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour would translate into a raise for nearly 40 million Americans. You know that half the country that doesn't vote? You want to get them out to vote? Give them all a raise. Say that, hey, if you vote for me, I'll give you a raise. How much? I'll double your salary. You want to get those people out to vote? There it is. And the Democrats proposed
and you know what else? They wouldn't just go out to vote. They would also go out, maybe Joe wants to start his pizza shop in downtown. Well, if they all have a raise and 40 more million Americans have more money in their pocket, they might go out and eat out a little more often.
They might eat out.
Joe's pizza shop might succeed now. So, yeah, it really lifts everybody up.
This was all from 2015 based on some bogus study from Washington University. And here's a recent article. This is from October 24th, 2018, and it's from Bloomberg, and it says, what minimum wage foes got wrong about Seattle. An initial study said that the increase to $15 would cost workers jobs and hours. That didn't happen. Well, despite the dire forecasts, not only were new restaurants not closing, they were, in fact, opening. Employment in food services and drinking establishments has soared in Seattle, as the chart below shows. Here's the chart. This is Seattle, Tacoma, Bellevue, Washington, food service and drinking place employment. It goes all the way back from 1990, and it's there's a little dip here during the recession. Employment went down for those people, but it's been a straight frickin' line ever since, and it's now peaking. So this is 2018 data. There's no dip. Where's the dip in 2015? There's no dip in employment. It just kept going straight up. So, and the source for this is the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. So the employment keeps going up. Over 150,000 people in the service and drinking place establishment employment in Seattle, Tacoma, Bellevue. 150,000 people. That's up from a little over 100. Looks like about 110 in 2010. So that's a straight line. So much of the hand-wringing was based upon a deeply flawed University of Washington study. As we noted in 2017, the study's fatal flaw was that its analysis excluded large multi-state businesses with more than one location. Why the F would you do that? So you know what that means? That means that a University of Washington study excluded fast food places like McDonald's and Burger King. They excluded them because they are a multi-state business with more than one location. Why they decided to do that, I have no idea, but that's where all this BS came from. That's where that video I just showed you from the news, that's where those articles came from in the USA Today. And when thinking about the impact of raising minimum, so it goes on. So when thinking about the impact of raising minimum wages, one can't simply omit most of the biggest minimum wage employers in the region, such as McDonald's and other fast food chains, or Walmart and the other major retailers, which is what that study did. And how does what? These are the very employers that were the main target of minimum wage law, and you're excluding them. Indeed, the law established an even higher minimum wage of $15.45 an hour for companies with 500 or more employees. Again, people have this emotional reaction. When you raise the minimum wage, that money that used to go to the stockholders and the CEO, and when it goes there, where does that money go? It stagnates. It doesn't go anywhere. They don't spend it in. Those people are already spending all the money that they're going to spend in the economy. They're already buying all the houses, cars, and clothes and taking all the vacations. If they make more money, they're not going to increase their consumption, is what I'm saying. You know who will increase their consumption? The minimum wage worker. So if you take less profit for the shareholder, you give it to the worker, they're going to spend that in your economy.
Jimmy's right on this one. This is McDonald's profit per employee per year. McDonald's has done an excellent job in the last 15 years, roughly, of making their restaurants more productive and more efficient. And as productivity has gone up, McDonald's profit per employee per year has gone up. In 2005, McDonald's profit per employee per year was $13,300. By 2013, that had risen by $6,000 roughly to $19,000 a year. In 2017, McDonald's profit per employee per year was $22,700. And Jimmy Dore is correct in arguing what used to happen is when workers got more productive and they made more profit per worker per year, workers would get a pay raise, workers would go out and spend more money at other businesses, and everyone in the country would benefit.
So when you raise the minimum wage, economies always get better in the states that raise it because those people then spend that money.